So this is the iPhone 16 Pro Max, and I've had this phone since launch day right around 9 months ago. I upgraded from the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and in this episode, I want to discuss 9 months. So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. In this episode, we're going to talk about the 9 months later, everything I have to say about these two right here. Now, let's just begin by talking about, was it worth upgrading to the iPhone 16 Pro Max from the 15 Pro Max? Now, from a business perspective, from a YouTuber perspective, of course, you're always going to want to upgrade to have a new phone to cover, to create some content with. That's pretty obvious. But as a personal perspective, I have to say, as a tech enthusiast, I have enjoyed the upgrade because I always enjoy the latest features, of course. I enjoy the thinner bezels, more battery life. But there's a couple of things I have to say about this. I think almost everyone else, if you're not really an enthusiast and you notice all the little details, absolutely not. This wasn't worth the upgrade because while we do have quite a few things that are improved, like our improved camera control, a bigger screen, thinner bezels, the core experience, the core elements of what you're going to need from an iPhone is still premium and very high end on the iPhone 15 Pro Max, even 9 months after the 16 Pro Max has come out. And it's not like it's a game-changing new phone. It's just, once again, a bigger, bolder, nicer phone. However, in the real world differences, the iPhone 15 Pro Max still was a lighter, sleeker phone here. And while it did have issues with heating and they had to throttle it back over some updates, generally it was a sleeker, easier to use 6.7-inch device. So, if you like a lighter feel, if you like a sleeker, thinner kind of feel, you might prefer the 15 Pro Max. If you like a bigger, all-you-can-get, power user, long battery life, beast phone, like 13 Pro Max style, welcome to the 16 Pro Max. This is going to be your phone. And even if you had this and you thought the battery wasn't the best, I want a little bit better performance, I just want a bigger screen, you'll like the upgrade. But 9 months later, I think most people did well if they said, you know what, I'm going to keep my 15 Pro Max. But if you really craved a lot of upgrades over the 15 Pro Max, like better thermals, better, battery life, you probably were also happy if you also did the upgrade for some of those reasons to the 16 Pro Max. Now, in the area of display, this display also kind of really reminded me of some of the Samsung phones with these really thin bezels, but we still have the dynamic island up there. But 6.9 inches made it even more of a stretch. And here's one thing about the usability aspect of this phone. Because they thinned out the bezels on this product right here, side to side, the width, the reach is also harder because it's not only bigger, it feels a little wider, I think, because they're getting closer to the all screen. It does seem to be not the most practical. So sometimes I really prefer going to the smaller 16 Pro or something more like a 6.7 on the iPhone 15 Pro Max over here. So that's something to note. In terms of resolution and sharpness, they kind of retain the same resolution, the same sharpness. Both of them are very similar in terms of the PPI, the brightness levels, things of that sort. Although I find the 16 Pro Max to never really auto dim itself too much, whereas the 15 Pro Max did it a couple of more times, although nowhere near like what I seen on the, get into focus, like I seen on the 14 Pro or Pro Max. So this one was pretty good, but definitely I feel like the 16 Pro Max was able to retain its brightness levels more sustained over my experience. Also, I don't feel like going to 6.9 made a massive difference in terms of the content displayed on phone. So you can see right here, it doesn't really show too much more content because of that 6.9. It just makes it slightly more spacious. So it's not like you went from 6.7 to like a 7-inch. You went up 0.2 inches. You're getting it through bezels. But I think the area where I really like the bigger screen is media consumption, so watching videos. But generally, it doesn't really show way more content. And both of them are of the ProMotion variety, so both of them feel very smooth when going through. If you see any chop on the left, that's because that's developer beta 1. on the iPhone 16 Pro Max of iOS 26. Now, in the area of performance, we are looking at the Apple A18 Pro chip and running the latest iOS 26 here. This is definitely going to be the best chip to try it out on in terms of performance, but 4.04 gigahertz, 8 gigabytes of RAM standard across the iPhone 16 lineup, which has made them definitely more reliable performers. But they generally benchmark just a little bit better than the iPhone 15 Pro Max, but in real world application, because iOS is still optimized to perform similarly across the Apple ecosystem of iPhones, you'll see that regardless of the scores, being better on the new phone, I couldn't feel it. That's just the bottom line. Now, I could feel a difference when I use Samsung's latest One UI 7 powered S25s. Those actually feel snappier than these phones, but coming from iPhone to iPhone, I couldn't really tell too much of a difference. But one thing I did notice about the iPhone 16 Pro Max is it does have better cooling. It still doesn't match vapor chamber Android phones, but if you are playing games, and play it in the gaming section here in the iOS 26, it can game with better sustained performance and also less heat. So that is the main thing in the area of performance I've noticed. Both of these phones do have enough performance to run the latest iOS 26, and it's going to get better over time. However, they don't really do anything to take advantage of these screen sizes in the area of performance. So we can't multitask with multi-windows or multi-split screens or anything like that. And I've actually heard some people say in the comments that nobody really uses that stuff, so who cares? But I think if it was there, some people would use it, but it just hasn't been offered yet. So you're in a single app at a time on both. So 9 months later, I don't really feel like I was able to take too much advantage of that extra performance boost when we kind of just get the same experience all the time. That just goes to show that these phones have been fast for a very long time, and the A17 Pro in there is still a boss performer. So 9 months later, the chip wasn't the reason that I enjoyed using the 16 Pro Max over the 15 Pro Max. It more came down to the next section. So battery life is actually not too horrible on the latest bug patch for the developer beta 1 for 26, but I'm not going to discuss the battery in terms of the beta because that's not really fair. But I will say that over my experience with this upgrade, the battery life has held up significantly better for me than the 15 Pro Max. I'm getting anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours better of usage time per day, and that is pretty substantial. I mean, you do probably have access to chargers in multiple areas, but for those of you who want a workhorse phone that really can just go the distance, provided you charge it up overnight, this is the one right here. This is the iPhone to get, the 16 Pro Max. Also, the 16 Plus will be a good alternative option. That thing's also beastly. But the 15 Pro Max was, to me, not bad. It wasn't superb. It was, to me, a good, better than average, not the best, not the worst. This phone could easily make it a day 0.5, but the 16 Pro Max to me is going 2 for regular usage. So this one is not a marginal. It is a pretty noticeable jump in battery life. So 9 months later, that is the key thing as an owner of both of these that has not made me want to use 15 Pro Max very regularly, besides for checking its current updates and keeping you guys updated with its current performance and things of that sort. The battery life, it just wasn't as good, although still a whole day for most people. For power users, the 16 Pro Max is the move. So let's go ahead and talk about the camera comparison. So I'll use my Apple Watch Ultra. This is the original one, the first Apple Watch Ultra, to talk about the camera. Now, I've mentioned this before about the camera control being better, but really the camera experience with more zoom, with just overall better quality, has been definitely something of a treat on the iPhone 16 Pro Max, especially with the sharper ultra wide angle as well as the pro features that are available, 124K. This is definitely way more than most people need, although the prior 15 Pro Max was also probably way more than most people need. But for true professionals, the 16 Pro Max is clearly going to be the better option here. One thing that I have to say though is that the photo modes or the photography from the front, the selfie, is definitely not too noticeably different. So this wasn't shocking to me. Apple's been using similar cameras on the front camera for many, many years, and it hasn't changed too much there. But then when I pick up the 15 Pro Max, I find myself doing this, and I'm presented with a 5G antenna there, not a camera control button. So that was a sleek way for them to integrate the 5G antenna there, but now we have the Apple Watch Ultra on. We do have 5 times here and 25 times here as well. And if we go ultra wide, it's going to be slightly less sharp, but it's not that bad. It's still very, very good. If we go over here in the video, 4K at 60, and again, if the camera looks different, it's because we are on iOS 26 on the left. So keep that in mind. You will be getting that same difference in terms of the new look. But there's just nothing basic about the iPhone 15 Pro Max on the camera. The front-facing cameras are also superb. So while I do like the overall results more on the 16 Pro Max, I don't think they were substantial enough for me to say the upgrade was that crazy worth it. It probably wasn't overall. That wasn't, again, my main area, the camera. The main area to me was the battery and the screen size update. I really was interested in seeing what a 6.9-inch iPhone was like to use, and it felt near tablet level. It really did. It's pushing near 7 inches. At 6.7, some people might still find the iPhone 15 Pro Max to be the sweet spot. The 16 Plus is the same size as this, but it's lighter and thinner, but it doesn't have 120. So they always get you with that thing right there. But in real world use, you could definitely rock out with 15 Pro Max all of this year, next year, and still be using one of the best cameras in the game. So social media also, these do fantastic. But 9 months later, of course, it's clear that the 16 Pro Max is better, but the camera control has been useful to me. And also, I like the 4K 120 and some of the pro features. But 9 months later, the 15 Pro Max, still impressive in that area. One thing that I do have to say that was actually better on the iPhone 16 Pro Max, surprisingly, that was this area. The reception strength was noticeably better than the 15 Pro Max. That's been a joy, because I used to say that Samsung phones always had the better reception, and they still do have a little bit better reception, if I'm being honest. The S25 Ultra does. But this one was marketably better than the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Like, it was noticeable. So I was pretty happy about that. Also, I continued to notice the heating and stability was just better on the 16 Pro Max. Although iOS 18 was a bit buggy to me. It did introduce more bugs than I've seen in some prior years. So this phone did have some app crashes. It was not perfection, but software-wise, both of these running the same thing. They both feel like you're using basically the same product, so I don't want to go too on and on with the software. This one will be getting the iOS 26 update, just like you see over here on my 16 Pro Max later this fall, the official versions. But of course, you're not going to be able to sell the iPhone 15 Pro Max for as much anymore as you would the 16 Pro Max. But my final verdict is, who should choose which? I think if you're looking for a good value and you don't want a plus iPhone, and you also don't want to pay the high price tags of a brand new iPhone 17 coming in 3 months, you might actually really like still buying a 15 Pro Max, because these are continuing to drop in value. And if you go ahead and wait till the 17, and we can cover this again later this year as this gets the official iOS 26, the 15 Pro Max, this is going to be a steal of a deal. You can always just buy like a 1 or 2 year old Max, more like a 2-year-old Max, and you're always going to get a really high-end experience for not nearly as much as new iPhone. So that is a smart decision, I would say, right there. And if you don't need all of the latest and greatest, that's still an awesome option. Heading into the summer, if you do want to buy a phone for your travels, you want some of the quickest actions to get into the camera, like camera control. You want some of the sharpest zoom-in results, ultra-wides. You need everything in the camera game for your travels this summer. This is going to be the best option for you on the iPhone side. Clearly, we know it's a top-of-the-line one. But I would argue that if you are open to other platforms, the zooming on some Android phones are just so much further reach than these products right here. So do keep that in mind. But also, if you're a power user and you're headed into the summer and you're not wanting to wait for a new phone, the battery life is just going to last you on this baby. It's just really going to do that. And if you're the type of person who's out and about, you're heavy using during the day, but then you want to kick back, relax later, and consume some content, the iPhone 16 Pro Max is going to be the one that I recommend. And that is because 6.9 and reduced bezels allows you to kind of just get lost in the content here. And not that that's not true on the 15 Pro Max. You could easily get lost in the content on this one as well, especially when you flip the 16 Pro Max into the landscape orientation and start watching movies. This is the first phone I felt like I didn't even want to touch my iPad mini in terms of the size. It's getting that big with the 6.9. So that's my final verdict. You can't go wrong either way. 9 months later, though, I have to be honest. As a tech enthusiast, I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the upgrade. I'm always going to enjoy it because I'm just a fan of the new features, the new upgrades in technology. But I will say that in terms of like from a consumer's perspective, definitely was not worth the upgrade for what it actually provides to me as a person. It's more like a fanatic thing, when it comes to just loving technology, because the upgrades weren't that substantial. But anybody coming from a 2 or 3 year old phone, you are in for a treat with the 16 Pro Max. Anyway, thank you guys for watching my 9 months later review comparison update between two of the best iPhones ever made. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section. If you'd like to see more videos like this, let me know that as well. Have a great rest of your Sunday. I'll catch you on the next one. Nick here. Be sure to be well. And peace.